Just before we get into this video, check out this awesome The Amazing Spider-Man 2 Hot Toys that my friend got me for my birthday a couple of weeks ago. I actually pre-ordered this when it was announced like 2 years ago or 3 years ago or however long it was, and they actually cancelled my pre-order because they had a problem with making these things. Like, they had something go wrong with like oil spilling on them or something like that. So the fact that my friend actually managed to get me this is just pure awesomeness, and I think I may actually develop an addiction to buying more, which is a problem because they are quite expensive. Thank you so much. So welcome back, this is the review for Ultimate Spider-Man issue 80, but before we get into this review, I actually want to ask you guys what you thought of the brand new Marvel Spider-Man cartoon. They recently just released like a longish clip, like teaser trailer sort of thing about it. I just wanted to give my first views on it, but the one problem I have with it is that Spider-Man explains absolutely everything that he's going to do.
This guy's like a bull in a china shop. Time to rein this bull in. Oh, this tail has the strength of a wrecking ball. I happen to know a place where there are less things to wreck.
Which makes me think that it's targeted to a younger audience. That's my only concern, but other than that, the voice acting is awesome, and as I've already said, I'm going to wait until a few episodes have released to actually give full judgment. But let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below about seeing it. If you have seen it, the link will be in the description. If you haven't, anyway, go check it out and let me know, because it is like, it's going to be a talking point eventually. Anyway, moving over into this Ultimate Spider-Man issue 80 review. In the previous issue, we saw Mary Jane come to terms with actually trying to get Peter Parker back. But of course, we also had a little bit of Hammerhead introduced into the Ultimate Universe as a villain, and it seems like he's coming after the Kingpin to be the next big man of crime. As for Ultimate Spider-Man issue 80, Mary Jane doesn't actually make an appearance in this comic, but the gap is filled by another female character, which we've already seen in the past 2 issues. Now, we also do have the appearance of the Kingpin, and of course, towards the end of the issue, with the appearance of Moon Knight, we're going to see an awesome fight scene between Moon Knight and Spider-Man in this issue as well. So without any further ado, guys, let's get into this review and let's see what you guys think of it. So getting into the issue, we have the introduction of Danny Rand, who of course is Iron Fist, and we are actually quite familiar with his character, specifically because he recently had his own Netflix series release on Netflix within the past couple of months, and it was actually pretty awesome. I thought it was a good introduction to his character, and now of course he's being introduced in the Ultimate Universe, and I'm going to say this is actually the first and only time we will see his character in this comic book. And to be honest, it actually does seem a little bit out of place just because it never really gets brought up again. So obviously he's probably going to get introduced within the next couple of issues properly, but we'll have to wait until then. So anyway, as you can see on screen, we're getting into this Moon Knight vs Spider-Man fight, and I think one of the actual interesting things about this comic is that it actually shows what actually happens to Spider-Man when the Daily Bugle start writing bad things about him, because you actually get characters such as Moon Knight who believe the newspapers and actually go out to find Spider-Man and fight him and potentially kill him. We also have Kingpin making plays in this comic as well, as of course in the previous issue we saw the introduction of Hammerhead taking down some of Kingpin's warehouses and sort of trying to make a name for himself and trying to replace Kingpin as the big man of crime. One of my favourite things about this comic book in general was actually the fact that Spider-Man and Moon Knight had a little bit of humour going on in between their fight. It really seemed like Moon Knight didn't really know what he was getting himself into when he realised that Spider-Man wasn't as old as what he seemed. Because let's face it, Spider-Man comes off as a really annoying teenager when he's Spider-Man, and I think Moon Knight actually picked up on that and couldn't believe the fact that he was fighting a kid. Something else that I also liked that came out of this was the fact that now Moon Knight was actually being portrayed in the press as a bad person as well. I thought that was really awesome how the table sort of turned on Moon Knight like that, just kind of showing him that the bad press isn't usually right when they slate superheroes and stuff. So I thought that was really funny. We also get another inclusion from J. Jonah Jameson and Ben Urich after not seeing these guys for quite a few issues now, or at least maybe it's just been quite a while since I've reviewed an Ultimate Spider-Man comic and that's why it feels a while, but either way, it's good to see these guys again. And what I really like on screen is the fact that you can really tell that these characters love the job that they do, coming up with headlines for the newspapers, finding out stories, especially with Ben Urich knowing that that warehouse was actually owned by Kingpin. There really is a lot of passion in the work they do, and it shines through in their characters. It's awesome. Something that was also very reminiscent of the Spider-Man 2 movie with Tobey Maguire was the part where J. Jonah Jameson hears Peter Parker mention the name Moon Knight, and he plays it off as if it's a really bad name, but then most likely J. Jonah Jameson is probably going to use that name for the paper. And that is exactly what happened in Spider-Man 2 when J. Jonah Jameson stole the name of Dr. Octopus from his assistant. Anyway, moving on throughout the issue, we also get the inclusion of Aunt May, and I very much like Brian Michael Bendis' writing in this instance, where he sort of just brings back that sort of support for Peter Parker from his Aunt May. You know, that sort of watching eyes that's always trying to take care of him, always concerned for him, especially because we haven't had too much input recently from Aunt May in the recent issues. So to have her quickly enter this comic just for a few pages or even for a few panels is definitely welcomed. Now moving into the Spider-Man section of the comic, Spider-Man's heading over to Kingpin due to the building that was blown up by Hammerhead being owned by Kingpin, and Spider-Man wants answers. The funny part though was that Kingpin was actually expecting Spider-Man, and so when he landed on the roof, he was automatically invited inside. And surprisingly, Spider-Man isn't actually in any real danger. Another reason why I love Spider-Man so much is just because of what's taking place on the panels on the pages right now. We have to remember he's a teenager and there's that humour, and it's just so awesome to see how Spider-Man sort of shows that teenage side to him every now and again, and it's actually really refreshing to the comic. Speaking of refreshing, it's also awesome to have Kingpin back in these comics, and I've already said it before, but Kingpin sort of holds a special place in the Ultimate Universe, especially to me just because he was one of the earlier villains from the early issues of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and so he plays quite a big role in terms of developing Spider-Man's character, not only from the very beginning, but also from now and in the future of these Spider-Man comics as well. Anyway, moving on and going into the conversation between Spider-Man and Kingpin, as you can see, Kingpin is pretty much telling Spider-Man that he needs to get rid of Hammerhead because sooner or later, Spider-Man's going to have to do it anyway. So Kingpin is pretty much giving Spider-Man that mission, not only to get rid of Hammerhead for his own sakes, but for Spider-Man's sakes as well, apparently. I think the best thing about this conversation is the fact that Spider-Man can still maintain a sense of humour when Kingpin is actually completely serious. And that is also another thing that I love about the interactions between Spider-Man and the Kingpin. It's the fact that Spider-Man cannot stop insulting Kingpin and just ripping him to shreds. It's so good, and I wish there was more of it in the comics. But now coming up to that inevitable final page of the comic, we've got Spider-Man completely and utterly against working with the Kingpin. But obviously we're going to have to see how things play out, especially with the Moon Knight character and maybe some other characters as well. We'll have to wait and see. So that issue was awesome, and I actually really liked the fight scene between Spider-Man and Moon Knight. And one of the things that I didn't actually mention in the review is that Moon Knight has multiple personalities, and we've got to be careful saying that because I'm not actually too sure if the ultimate version of Moon Knight has multiple personalities. It might just be the 616 universe version, I can't remember, but either way it's going to come into light sooner or later when we meet some other characters within the next few issues. Of course, we also got the appearance of Kingpin actually making this little bit of a deal with Spider-Man, trying to get him to take down Hammerhead. And what I really like about this is that Spider-Man is kind of being put into this situation of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and I think Kingpin sees it like that as well. And saying that, Kingpin knows that a person like Spider-Man isn't going to let Hammerhead run around like crazy, killing people and blowing up buildings forever. So sooner or later, Spider-Man is going to have to take down Hammerhead. I've already mentioned it during the review of this comic, but I very much liked the passion coming from J. Jonah Jameson and his team, especially from Ben Urich, knowing everything about journalism and just sort of getting that story out there and thinking of a headline. It's always really refreshing to see J. Jonah Jameson in the comic book, especially when you know what happens to him way in the future of these comics. Like, nothing really happens to him, it's just like it just builds his character so much more. Cannot wait to get there to show you guys about that. Now overall, I actually think that this particular Spider-Man comic is a lot darker than some of the rest of them, especially with the tone of Spider-Man coming face to face with Kingpin. I've got to mention as well, I really did like the humour that Spider-Man was chucking out there towards Kingpin. Even though it was a really serious situation, he still sat down to eat pizza with the guy. That's awesome. And that also factors into why I'm going to give this issue an 8 out of 10. The darker tone, the artwork, the characters that were included. Hammerhead never really made an appearance, but you actually felt like his presence was actually taking over most of the comic, especially on the Kingpin scene. So that was really cool to see how a comic can kind of just do that. But that is the end of this video, guys. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below, and don't forget to let me know about what you thought of Marvel's brand new Spider-Man cartoon. I really want to know what you guys think of it, because I have so many concerns, but so many good things about it as well. Anyway, hit the subscribe button if you want more of these videos. Let me know what you thought in the comments below about this video and this review. Did you like the comic? Did you hate the comic? What was your favorite part about it? Don't forget to hit the like button, and I will see you guys in my next video.